What I discovered 30 minutes before my surgery will shock you beyond belief. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how one medical emergency exposed the biggest lie of my marriage, and how it almost cost me my life. It was supposed to be a routine surgery. Gallbladder removal, they said. In and out in 2 hours. Simple, safe, nothing to worry about. But as I lay on that cold hospital bed at 6 a.m., signing what could potentially be my final documents, my entire world came crashing down in the most unexpected way. I thought I knew my husband. I thought I knew my life. I was wrong about everything. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand just how deep this betrayal goes. My name is Sarah Johnson. I'm 38 years old, and I've been married to David for 15 years. We met in college. He was studying business, I was in nursing school. He was charming, ambitious, always talking about the big dreams he had for our future together. David worked in sales for a medical device company. Good job, steady income. Nothing spectacular, but enough for us to live comfortably in our suburban home in Ohio. We never had kids, not by choice, but after years of trying and several heartbreaking miscarriages, we'd accepted that it would just be the two of us. I worked as a registered nurse at the local hospital. I loved my job, loved helping people, loved the feeling that I was making a difference. David always supported my career, or so I thought. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but whose is? David traveled a lot for work, sales conferences, client meetings, training seminars. Sometimes he'd be gone for a week at a time. I missed him, but I understood. He was working hard for our future. Or at least that's what I believed. For the past 6 months, I'd been having severe abdominal pain. At first, I thought it was just stress from work. The hospital had been understaffed, and I was pulling double shifts regularly. But the pain got worse. Much worse. Finally, after collapsing during my shift one particularly busy Thursday night, my colleague Dr. Martinez insisted I get a full workup. The diagnosis came back quickly. Acute cholecystitis. My gallbladder was severely inflamed and needed to be removed immediately. It's really routine, Sarah, Dr. Martinez assured me. Laparoscopic surgery, minimal invasion, you'll be home in 2 days. David was in Chicago on a business trip when I got the diagnosis. When I called to tell him, he immediately said he'd catch the next flight home. Don't be ridiculous, I told him. It's just gallbladder surgery. Finish your meetings. I'll be fine. But he insisted. Sarah, you're my wife. I'm not letting you go through surgery alone. At the time I thought it was sweet, caring, the mark of a devoted husband. I had no idea what he was really thinking. The morning of my surgery arrived gray and drizzly. David had gotten back from Chicago late the night before, full of apologies and concern. He held my hand in the car on the way to the hospital, telling me over and over that everything would be fine. I love you, Sarah, he said as we pulled into the hospital parking garage. More than anything in this world. I love you too, I replied, squeezing his hand. Those words would haunt me for the rest of my life. We checked in at 5:30 a.m. The pre-surgery process was routine: change into a gown, start in 4, meet with the anesthesiologist. David sat beside my bed, making small talk with the nurses, charming them the way he charmed everyone. At 6:15 a.m., a nurse named Patricia came in with a clipboard full of papers. Mrs. Johnson, I have some final consent forms for you to sign, and we'll need your husband to sign some financial authorization forms as well. Financial authorization forms. That should have been my first clue. I started signing the medical consent forms. Standard stuff about the risks of surgery, anesthesia, potential complications. David was looking at his phone, scrolling through emails. Mr. Johnson, Patricia said, handing him his clipboard. These are just routine financial forms. Insurance verification, emergency contact information, and beneficiary updates for your medical accounts. Beneficiary updates. The words didn't register at first. David took the clipboard and started signing quickly, barely reading. But I caught a glimpse of one of the papers as he signed it, and something made me freeze. It was letterhead from Mutual Life Insurance Company, a company I'd never heard of. David, I said slowly, what's that paper you're signing? He looked up, and for just a split second I saw something in his eyes. Panic? Guilt? It was gone so quickly I almost thought I'd imagined it. Oh, it's nothing, honey. Just updating our life insurance information with the hospital. But Patricia was frowning now, looking at the papers more carefully. Actually, Mr. Johnson, this appears to be a new policy application, not an update to existing coverage. My blood went cold. New policy? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. David's face went white. Absolutely white. It's just a precaution, Sarah. With you having surgery and all. What kind of policy? I demanded, reaching for the papers. That's when I saw it. Right there, in black and white, was a life insurance policy application for $2.3 million. On my life. Dated just 3 weeks ago. The room started spinning. David, I whispered, my hands shaking as I held the paper. What is this? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The coffee cup he'd been holding slipped from his fingers and shattered on the hospital floor, the sound echoing through the sudden silence. Patricia was looking between us, clearly sensing the tension but not understanding what was happening. Mrs. Johnson, she said gently, did you know about this policy? I couldn't speak. I just stared at my husband. This man I'd loved for 15 years, this man I'd trusted with everything. As the horrible truth began to dawn on me. Sarah, let me explain, David started. Explain what? I found my voice and it came out sharp and loud. Explain why you took out a $2.3 million life insurance policy on me 3 weeks ago without telling me? Explain why you're filing it with the hospital the morning of my surgery. Other people in the hall were starting to stare. Patricia looked extremely uncomfortable. Maybe I should give you two some privacy, she said, starting to back away. No, I said firmly. Don't go anywhere. I want to see every paper he's signing. That's when it all came pouring out. The business trips to Vegas? He'd been gambling. Not just a little recreational gambling, serious, high-stakes gambling that had put us in debt to some very dangerous people. The promotion he supposedly got 6 months ago that explained his new expensive watch and car? He'd actually been fired from his job. Fired for embezzling money from his company's client accounts to cover his gambling debts. The second mortgage he took out on our house for home improvements? He'd never told me about it. The money had gone straight to the casinos. We were broke. Worse than broke. We owed money to people who didn't just ruin your credit when you couldn't pay. They ruined your life. How much? I asked, my voice eerily calm. How much do you owe? David's hands were shaking now. $300,000, he whispered. $300,000? I couldn't breathe. Sarah, you have to understand. These people. They don't just want money. They want blood. If I don't pay them back soon. The implication hung in the air like poison. So you decided to sell mine instead? The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them, but as soon as I said them, I knew they were true. David had taken out a massive life insurance policy on me, just weeks before my surgery. He was hoping, no, planning for me to die. It's not like that, he said desperately. I wasn't. I would never. But his eyes told a different story. Patricia was backing toward the door now, clearly way out of her depth. I think I should get Dr. Martinez, she said. Yes, I said, not taking my eyes off David. Get Dr. Martinez. And security. And I want to see every single paper my husband has signed this morning. Dr. Martinez arrived within minutes, along with hospital security and the head of the financial department. By then, I was sitting up in my hospital bed. No longer a patient preparing for surgery, but a woman fighting for her life in ways I never could have imagined. The paperwork told a story that made my stomach turn. David hadn't just taken out one life insurance policy. There were three separate policies with 3 different companies, all taken out within the past 2 months. Total value, $4.7 million. All on my life. All with him as the sole beneficiary. Mrs. Johnson, said the financial administrator, a kind-faced woman named Helen, were you aware that your signature appears on all of these applications? I looked at the documents. There was my signature perfectly forged on every single one. I never signed these, I said firmly. I've never even heard of these insurance companies. David was sitting in the corner chair, his head in his hands. He hadn't said a word since Dr. Martinez arrived. Mr. Johnson, Dr. Martinez said sternly, this is a very serious situation. Not only are we looking at insurance fraud, but given the timing. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my sister Emma's name. Sarah. Emma's voice was panicked. I just got the strangest call from some man asking about your medical history and whether you'd updated your will recently. He said he was from your insurance company, but something felt really wrong about it. Who was it? My hands were shaking as I held the phone. I looked around the room at all the faces staring at me. Dr. Martinez, Helen, the security guard, Patricia, and David. Especially David. Emma, I said slowly. I'm at the hospital. I need you to come here right now. And Emma? Bring your lawyer badge. My sister Emma was a criminal defense attorney. Smart, tough, and absolutely ruthless when someone she loved was threatened. Sarah, what's going on? You're scaring me. Just come. Now. And Emma. I think I'm in danger. I hung up and looked directly at David. How long have you been planning this? He finally looked up at me and I saw tears in his eyes. But I also saw something else. Desperation. The look of a man who was already in too deep to turn back. Sarah, you have to believe me. I never wanted it to come to this. But these people. They're going to kill me if I don't pay them back. They've already hurt me. For the first time, I noticed the fading bruises on his knuckles. The small cut above his left eyebrow that he'd claimed was from walking into a door. They're hurting you, I said. So your solution was to let me die? I thought if something happened during surgery, it would look like an accident. Natural. No one would get hurt except me. You'd be unconscious. You wouldn't suffer. And I could pay them back and start over. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You planned to kill me so you could start over. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. I think we need to postpone this surgery. No, I said firmly. We're not postponing anything. But I am making some changes. I turned to Helen. I want these insurance policies investigated immediately. I want the police called. And I want my husband removed from all my medical decisions, effective right now. Sarah, please, David begged. If you call the police, if you expose this, they'll kill me. You don't understand what these people are capable of. Then you should have thought of that before you decided to kill me first. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. That's when Emma burst through the door, still in her courtroom attire from the case she'd obviously just left. What the hell is going on here? She demanded, taking in the scene the security guard. The paperwork spread across my bed, David's tear-stained face. Emma, I said. I need you to listen very carefully. David has taken out almost $5 million in life insurance on me without my knowledge. I'm scheduled for surgery in 1 hour. And I think he's planning to make sure I don't survive it. Emma's face went through a series of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, and then pure cold fury. David, she said in her courtroom voice, I strongly suggest you don't say another word without an attorney present. I don't need an attorney, David said desperately. I need you to understand. You need to shut up, Emma snapped. Right now. She turned to Dr. Martinez. Doctor, is my sister in immediate medical danger if this surgery is postponed? The gallbladder needs to come out, but we could wait 24 to 48 hours if necessary. Then we're waiting. Emma pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. That's when David broke down completely. You don't understand, he sobbed. They're going to kill me. Tony Marconi doesn't give extensions. He doesn't negotiate. I owe him $300,000 and if I don't have it by Friday, I'm dead. The name hit me like a physical blow. Tony Marconi. Even I had heard of Tony Marconi. He was the loan shark who controlled most of the illegal gambling in our area. People who owed Tony Marconi money had a tendency to disappear. How long? I asked quietly. How long have you been gambling? David wiped his eyes with his sleeve. 2 years. Maybe 3. It started small, just a few hundred here and there. But then I had a big win and I thought I could make us rich. Really rich. Rich enough to quit our jobs and travel the world like we always talked about. But you didn't win. I kept losing. And losing. And every time I lost I bet bigger trying to win it back. And when I ran out of my own money, I started using company funds. You embezzled from your job. I was going to pay it back. I had a system, a sure thing. But you lost that too. He nodded miserably. And when they fired you, you took out a second mortgage on our house. Another nod. And when that wasn't enough, you decided the only way out was to kill me for the insurance money. The longest pause of my life. Then barely audible. Yes. Emma was already on the phone with the police, but I held up my hand to stop her. Wait, I said. David, I need you to tell me everything. Right now. Before the police get here. How exactly were you planning to do this? Emma looked at me like I was crazy. Sarah, don't. I need to know, I said firmly. I need to know how close I came to dying. David was crying harder now, but he started talking. Dr. Rodriguez, he said. He's the anesthesiologist who was supposed to handle your surgery. Dr. Martinez frowned. Dr. Rodriguez isn't scheduled for your surgery, Sarah. Dr. Patterson is your anesthesiologist. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean, Dr. Rodriguez? I asked David. Tony has connections everywhere. Dr. Rodriguez owes him money too. Big money. Tony told him that if he made a mistake during your surgery. What kind of mistake? Emma demanded. Too much anesthesia. Just a little too much. You'd go to sleep and never wake up. It would look like a reaction to the anesthesia. Sometimes that happens even to healthy people. The room was completely silent except for the sound of David's sobbing. Dr. Martinez was on his phone immediately, speaking in urgent, low tones. Security, I heard him say. I need Dr. Rodriguez located immediately. Do not let him leave the building. Emma sat down hard in the chair next to my bed. Jesus Christ, Sarah. You were minutes away from. She couldn't finish the sentence. How long have you been planning this? I asked David. 6 weeks. Ever since Tony gave me the ultimatum. He said I had 6 weeks to come up with the money or else. Or else what? Or else they'd make an example of me. And then they'd come after you anyway, just for fun. The casual way he said it made my skin crawl. So you decided to get them the money by killing me first. I thought if I could pay them back, they'd leave us alone. Both of us. Except I'd be dead. You'd be safe, he said desperately. Dead people can't be hurt. The twisted logic of it was almost worse than the betrayal itself. Dr. Martinez came back over to us, his face grim. Dr. Rodriguez left the building 20 minutes ago. Security is reviewing the footage to see if he was with anyone. He was supposed to be in surgery with me in 40 minutes, I said. Not anymore, he wasn't. Emma stood up. I'm calling Detective Morrison. He owes me a favor. As Emma made her call, I looked at David. Really looked at him. For what I knew would be the last time as my husband. When did you stop loving me? I asked. The question seemed to surprise him. I never stopped loving you, Sarah. I still love you. No, I said. You don't murder people you love. When did you stop? He was quiet for a long time. Then, when I realized you were worth more dead than alive. The honesty of it was like a knife to the chest. How much debt are you really in, David? Another pause. 700,000. You said 300,000. The rest is interest and penalties. The debt grows every day I don't pay it. So even the insurance money wouldn't have been enough. It would have bought me time. Time to figure something else out. What else? Who else were you planning to kill? He looked up at me sharply. What do you mean? I mean after you killed me and collected the insurance money and paid off Tony Marconi, and then ran up more debt gambling, who was next? Emma? My parents? Your own family. The look on his face told me I was right. You weren't going to stop, I realized. This was just the beginning. Sarah. No. Don't say my name. Don't ever say my name again. Emma came back over, slipping her phone into her purse. Detective Morrison is on his way. He's bringing a full team. What about Dr. Rodriguez? They found him in the parking garage making a phone call. They're bringing him in for questioning. Dr. Martinez checked his watch. Your surgery was supposed to start in 20 minutes. Cancel it, I said. Cancel everything. I'm not having surgery in this hospital until I know it's safe. Sarah, Emma said gently. We should probably get you transferred to another hospital, maybe Northwestern downtown. No, I said firmly. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I want to see this through. I looked at David one more time. 15 years, I said. 15 years of marriage, and this is what it comes down to. You were willing to murder me for money to pay gambling debts. Sarah, if there had been any other way. There were 1,000 other ways. I exploded. You could have told me the truth. You could have asked for help. You could have declared bankruptcy. You could have gone to the police yourself. But instead you chose murder. I was scared. So was I. I was scared about my surgery. Scared about what would happen if something went wrong. Scared about leaving you alone. And you were sitting right here planning to make sure I never woke up. The rage was overwhelming me now. 15 years of love, of trust, of building a life together. And he had been ready to throw it all away to solve a problem he'd created himself. That's when the police arrived. Detective Morrison was a tall, serious man with graying hair and kind eyes. He took one look at the scene: me in a hospital gown, David crying in the corner, Emma standing protectively beside my bed, and paperwork scattered everywhere, and immediately understood the gravity of the situation. Mrs. Johnson, he said, your sister filled me in on the drive over. Are you feeling up to talking? More than up to it, I said. Detective, my husband just confessed to planning to murder me during surgery today. Detective Morrison looked at David. Mr. Johnson, I need to inform you that you have the right to remain silent. I waive my rights, David interrupted. I'll tell you everything. Emma grabbed his arm. David, as your sister-in-law and as an attorney, I'm strongly advising you to shut up and get a lawyer. I don't deserve a lawyer, David said miserably. I don't deserve anything. Detective Morrison looked around the room. I think we need to move this conversation somewhere more private. No, I said. I want to hear everything he has to say. Right here, right now. Detective Morrison hesitated, then pulled out a small digital recorder. Mr. Johnson, you understand that anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law? I understand. Tell me about the insurance policies. David laid out the whole scheme. 3 different life insurance companies, all approached within weeks of each other. He'd forged my signature on every application. He'd even faked my medical records, making me appear healthier than I was to ensure the policies would pay out even if I died during surgery. The plan was for Dr. Rodriguez to give me too much anesthesia during the operation, David continued. It would look like a medical accident, an unfortunate reaction. And Dr. Rodriguez agreed to this because he owes Tony Marconi money too. A lot of money. Tony told him his debt would be forgiven if he helped with my situation. Detective Morrison made notes as David talked. How much money does Dr. Rodriguez owe? I don't know exactly, but enough that he was willing to commit murder to get out from under it. The detective looked at me. Mrs. Johnson, when did you first become aware of your husband's gambling problem? About an hour ago, I said. I had no idea. None at all. He hid it from you completely? Completely. As far as I knew, he was traveling for work, getting promoted, doing well. I thought we were financially stable. Detective Morrison turned back to David. How long have you been planning Mrs. Johnson's murder? 6 weeks. That's when Tony gave me the ultimatum. Tell me about Tony Marconi. David's voice got quieter. Tony runs most of the illegal gambling in the city. He has connections everywhere: doctors, lawyers, cops, judges. When you owe Tony money, you don't just owe money. You owe your life. How did you first encounter Mr. Marconi? Through poker games. High-stakes games in the back room of a restaurant downtown. At first, it was just a few $100s here and there. But the stakes kept getting higher, and I kept losing. How much do you currently owe Mr. Marconi? David hesitated. $700,000. Detective Morrison's eyebrows shot up. 700,000? The debt compounds daily. Interest, penalties, fees. Every day I don't pay, it gets bigger. And you thought murdering your wife would solve this problem? The insurance policies would have given me enough to pay off Tony and maybe disappear. Start over somewhere else. Start over without your wife. Sarah would have been safe. Dead people can't be threatened. The detective looked disgusted. Mr. Johnson, that's not how love works. I know that now. Do you? I interjected. Do you really? Because an hour ago you were ready to watch me die. David looked at me with tears streaming down his face. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't bring people back from the dead, David. Detective Morrison continued his questioning. Tell me about today. What was supposed to happen? Dr. Rodriguez was going to administer the anesthesia. Too much, but not so much that it would be obviously suspicious. Sarah would go under for surgery and just never wake up. And then I would be the grieving widower. I'd collect the insurance money in a few months, pay off Tony, and leave town. Did it occur to you that a $4.7 million payout to a grieving husband might raise some red flags? David shrugged. That was a problem for later. My immediate problem was staying alive long enough to collect anything. The detective made more notes, then looked at me. Mrs. Johnson, I have to ask, did you notice any changes in your husband's behavior over the past few months? I thought about it. He was more stressed than usual, more distant. He was taking a lot of phone calls in private. And he seemed, I don't know, more concerned about my health than usual. Concerned how? Always asking about my symptoms, whether I was getting worse, whether the doctors thought the surgery was risky. At the time, I thought he was just worried about me. He was evaluating his investment, Emma said grimly. Detective Morrison's radio crackled. He listened to it, then looked up at us. They've got Dr. Rodriguez in custody. He's asking for a lawyer. Smart man, Emma muttered. They also found something interesting in his car. A vial of succinylcholine. Dr. Martinez, who had been quietly listening to everything, went pale. What is succinylcholine? I asked. It's a powerful paralytic agent, Dr. Martinez explained. Used in anesthesia but in the wrong dose. It would cause cardiac arrest, Detective Morrison finished. Untraceable unless you specifically test for it, which nobody would think to do in a routine surgery complication. The room was silent as the implications sank in. So he wasn't planning to just give me too much anesthesia, I said slowly. He was planning to paralyze me. And then watch you die, Emma said, her voice shaking with rage. I looked at David. Were you going to be in the room? Were you going to watch me die? Sarah, please don't. Answer me. Were you going to hold my hand while Dr. Rodriguez murdered me? David's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. The betrayal of it was so complete, so total that for a moment I couldn't breathe. You were going to comfort me while I died. You were going to pretend to be devastated while I died. You were going to let me think in my last moments that my husband loved me. I do love you. No. I screamed. You don't get to say that. You don't get to claim love while planning murder. Detective Morrison stepped between us. Mrs. Johnson, I think we have enough for now. No, I said. I have more questions. I looked directly at David. Who else knows? What do you mean? Who else knows about this plan? Because someone had to help you forge my signatures. Someone had to help you contact the insurance companies. Someone had to connect you with Dr. Rodriguez. Who else is involved? David looked terrified. Sarah, if I tell you that. If you tell me that, what? Tony Marconi will kill you? He's going to kill you anyway now that this plan has failed. There's someone else. Someone who helped coordinate everything. Detective Morrison leaned forward. Who? My brother Mike. My heart sank. Mike was David's older brother. Someone I'd considered family for 15 years. Someone I'd trusted, loved, invited to every holiday dinner. Mike knows about this? He's the one who suggested it. He said it was the only way. Mike told you to murder me? He said it was better than letting Tony kill both of us. I felt like I was falling down a rabbit hole with no bottom. Anyone else? Dr. Rodriguez, obviously. And Tony's nephew, Vincent. He's the one who forged your signatures. Vincent Marconi forged my signatures? He's good at it. He's done it before for other people who owed Tony money. The scope of the conspiracy was overwhelming. This wasn't just my husband making a desperate decision. This was an organized effort involving multiple people, all working together to end my life. How many people have died because of this scheme? I asked Detective Morrison. That's exactly what we're going to find out, he replied grimly. Detective Morrison's radio crackled again. This time the news made everyone in the room freeze. Detective, we've got a problem. Mike Johnson just tried to board a flight to Mexico City. Airport security has him in custody. Emma and I looked at each other, then at David. Mike was planning to run? I asked. David nodded miserably. We both were. After everything was done, we were going to leave the country. Both of you. Mike has gambling debts too. Not as much as me, but enough that Tony wanted him to help with this. Detective Morrison was taking notes furiously. How much does Mike owe? About $50,000. But Tony told him that if he helped with my situation, his debt would be forgiven and he'd get a cut of the insurance money. How much of a cut? $500,000. I felt sick. Mike, David's brother who I'd known for 15 years, who'd been the best man at our wedding, who called me his sister. He was willing to help murder me for $500,000. Who else? Detective Morrison asked. Who else was getting paid out of this insurance money? Dr. Rodriguez was supposed to get $200,000. Vincent Marconi was getting $100,000 for the forgeries and coordination. Detective Morrison did the math. That's $800,000 accounted for. What about the remaining $3.9 million? $700,000 would go to pay off my debt to Tony. The rest was your retirement fund, I finished. You were planning to live off the money you got from murdering me. I was planning to disappear. Start over. Maybe South America, somewhere Tony couldn't reach me. And you never thought about the fact that you'd be living off blood money? That every dollar you spent would be a dollar you earned by killing your wife. David's silence spoke volumes. Emma's phone rang. She answered it, listened for a moment, then hung up. That was my assistant, she said. She did some quick research on Vincent Marconi. What did she find? He's been arrested 3 times for forgery and identity theft. Never convicted, but the charges keep getting dropped. Witnesses disappear? Detective Morrison asked. Witnesses disappear, Emma confirmed. The detective's radio crackled again. Detective Morrison, we need you to come down to the station. Dr. Rodriguez is asking to make a deal. Detective Morrison looked around the room. Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to need you to come with me to give a formal statement. I'm not leaving this hospital, I said firmly. Not until I know everyone involved in this conspiracy is in custody. Sarah, Emma said gently, you need medical attention. Your gallbladder. My gallbladder can wait. Right now, I need to know that Tony Marconi and Vincent Marconi, and whoever else is involved in this are behind bars. Detective Morrison nodded. I understand. But I can't guarantee your safety here. Then assign protection. But I'm not running and I'm not hiding. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. Mrs. Johnson, I can arrange for you to be moved to a secure wing of the hospital. Somewhere with restricted access. Do it. As the medical staff began preparing to move me, I looked at David one more time. I have one last question. He looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. If I had died today, if your plan had worked, how long would you have waited before you started dating again? The question seemed to surprise him. Sarah, I would never. How long, David? A long pause. I hadn't thought about it. Yes, you had. A man who plans his wife's murder down to the last detail has thought about what comes next. How long? Another pause, longer this time. Maybe a year. A year. I would have needed time to grieve. For appearances. And then you would have found someone new to share all that insurance money with. Sarah. Someone young and pretty probably. Someone who doesn't know about your gambling problem. Someone who trusts you the way I trusted you. It wouldn't have been like that. No? Then what would it have been like? David couldn't answer. You know what I think? I continued. I think you would have found someone within 6 months. I think you would have married her within 2 years. And I think when the money started running out, you would have taken out life insurance on her too. The look on David's face told me I was right. Because that's who you are, I said. You're not a man who made one bad decision. You're a predator. And predators don't stop hunting just because they've made a kill. Detective Morrison stepped between us again. Mr. Johnson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and filing false documents. As the detective read David his rights, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. For the first time in 6 months, I wasn't in pain. Not physical pain, that was still there. But the emotional pain, the constant low-level anxiety I'd been feeling without understanding why. The sense that something in my marriage was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. All of that was gone. Because now I knew the truth. My husband had never loved me. Not really. Maybe in the beginning, maybe for a few years. But somewhere along the way, I had become nothing more than a financial asset to him. Problem to be solved. An obstacle to be removed. And now that I knew that, I could finally start planning my real future. A future without David. A future where I didn't have to worry about who was planning to kill me. A future where I was finally safe. 2 hours later, I was settled in a secure room on the hospital's VIP floor. Emma had called our parents, who were driving up from Indiana. Detective Morrison had assigned 2 officers to guard my room. And Dr. Martinez had scheduled my surgery for the following morning with a completely new medical team. So, Emma said, settling into the chair beside my bed. How are you feeling? It was such a simple question, but the answer was complicated. Angry, I said finally. Relieved. Terrified. Grateful. All at the same time. Angry makes sense. 15 years, Emma. 15 years of marriage, and I never suspected any of it. How could you have? He was living a completely double life. My phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Mrs. Johnson? The voice was official, professional. This is Agent Catherine Wells with the FBI. I'm calling about your husband's case. The FBI? Emma raised her eyebrows and moved closer so she could hear. Mr. Johnson's arrest has opened up a much larger investigation, Agent Wells continued. We've been watching Tony Marconi for months, but we've never been able to get anyone willing to testify against him. Your husband's confession gives us exactly what we need. What does that mean for me? It means you're going to be the star witness in a federal racketeering case. It also means that you're in danger until we can get Marconi and his organization behind bars. Emma took the phone from me. Agent Wells, this is Emma Richardson, Mrs. Johnson's attorney. What kind of danger are we talking about? Serious danger. Marconi has already put a price on Mr. Johnson's head for botching this operation. We have reason to believe he might try to tie up loose ends. Meaning me, I said. Meaning you. Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to recommend that you enter witness protection until this case goes to trial. The room spun a little. Witness protection. New identity. New life. New everything. For how long? The trial is scheduled for 8 months from now, but depending on appeals. Years, Emma finished. You could be in witness protection for years. I closed my eyes and tried to process everything. This morning I had been Sarah Johnson, married nurse from Ohio, worried about routine gallbladder surgery. Tonight, I was Sarah Johnson, key witness in a federal murder conspiracy case, hiding from organized crime figures who wanted me dead. Agent Wells, I said. Can I have some time to think about this? Mrs. Johnson, I don't think you understand the urgency. I understand perfectly. But I've had about 6 hours to process the fact that my husband was planning to murder me. I need a little time to process the fact that I might have to disappear forever. 24 hours, Agent Wells said. I can give you 24 hours. But then we need a decision. She hung up. Emma and I sat in silence for a long time. What are you thinking? She finally asked. I'm thinking that this morning I was worried about dying during surgery. Now I'm worried about dying because I didn't die during surgery. Sarah, I'm thinking that my husband's gambling addiction has destroyed not just our marriage, not just our finances, but my entire life. Even if he goes to prison forever, I still lose everything. You don't lose everything. You keep your life. Do I? What kind of life is witness protection? New name, new city, new job. Can't contact my family. Can't contact my friends, always looking over my shoulder. Emma reached over and took my hand. It's better than being dead. Is it? We were interrupted by a knock on the door. One of the officers peeked in. Mrs. Johnson, you have a visitor. Dr. Rodriguez's attorney wants to speak with you. Emma and I looked at each other. What could he possibly want? I asked. Only one way to find out. The attorney was a thin, nervous-looking man named Gerald Hoffman. He sat down across from us and immediately started talking. Mrs. Johnson, my client Dr. Rodriguez wants to cooperate fully with the investigation. He's prepared to testify against Mr. Marconi in exchange for a reduced sentence. Good for him, I said. What does that have to do with me? He wants to apologize. In person. He says. He says he needs you to know that he never wanted to hurt you. I stared at him. He was planning to murder me. He was being coerced. Mr. Marconi threatened his family. His wife, his 2 young children. So instead of going to the police, he decided to kill me? Mr. Hoffman looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Johnson, my client made a terrible decision, but he's not a killer. He's a doctor who got in over his head with gambling debts and made increasingly desperate choices. Just like my husband. Dr. Rodriguez wants to help put Marconi away. But he also wants to make amends to you if that's possible. Emma leaned forward. What kind of amends? He's prepared to testify not just about your case, but about 2 other similar cases he was involved in over the past year. My blood went cold. 2 other cases? 2 other wives whose husbands owed money to Marconi. 2 other surgical accidents. Are you telling me that Dr. Rodriguez has murdered 2 other women? Mr. Hoffman nodded grimly. Jennifer Walsh in March. Patricia Donovan in August. I felt sick to my stomach. And their husbands collected life insurance money? Millions of dollars. Which they used to pay off their debts to Marconi. Emma was writing furiously in her notepad. Are the husbands in custody? Not yet. They don't know that Dr. Rodriguez is cooperating. But they will be arrested within the next 48 hours. I closed my eyes and tried to process this information. David hadn't come up with this plan on his own. It was a proven system. A murder-for-hire scheme disguised as medical accidents, run by Tony Marconi, carried out by corrupt doctors, and funded by life insurance fraud. How many others? I asked quietly. We don't know yet. Dr. Rodriguez says Marconi has been running this operation for at least 3 years. 3 years of murdering wives to pay off husbands' gambling debts. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Hoffman said gently, you're the first wife who survived. You're the first person who can expose this entire operation. Which is why Marconi wants me dead. Which is why your testimony is so important. I looked at Emma. If I testify, how many other women might be saved? Dozens potentially. Sarah, this could shut down Marconi's entire organization. I made my decision. Tell Dr. Rodriguez I'll see him. But not to apologize. I want to know everything. Every detail about how this operation works, every name he knows, every case he's been involved in. Mr. Hoffman looks surprised. Mrs. Johnson, you don't have to. Yes, I do. If I'm going to spend the next few years of my life in witness protection, if I'm going to lose my identity and my family and my entire life, then I'm going to make sure it's worth it. Sarah, Emma said cautiously, are you sure about this? I'm sure. David didn't just try to kill me. He made me part of a serial killing operation. And I'm going to make sure everyone involved pays for it. I picked up my phone and called Agent Wells. Agent Wells? This is Sarah Johnson. I've made my decision. I'll testify. But I want full protection for my family too. And I want to be involved in every aspect of this investigation. Mrs. Johnson, that's not how witness protection works. Then change how it works. Because I'm not just a victim anymore. I'm a weapon. And I intend to use myself to destroy everyone who thought they could profit from my death. I hung up and looked at Emma. I'm not running from this. I'm running toward it. What do you mean? I mean Tony Marconi and my husband and Dr. Rodriguez and Mike and Vincent and everyone else involved in this conspiracy are about to learn what happens when you try to kill someone who refuses to die. Emma smiled for the first time all day. That's my sister. The federal courthouse in Chicago was packed. News crews lined the street outside. Inside, the gallery was full of family members of victims, FBI agents, prosecutors, and curious observers who had been following what the media called the surgical murder conspiracy. I sat in the front row, wearing a navy blue suit and feeling stronger than I had in years. My gallbladder surgery had gone perfectly, performed by a new medical team at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, with FBI agents in the operating room to ensure my safety. Over the past 6 months, the investigation had uncovered the full scope of Tony Marconi's operation. 15 wives murdered over 3 years. 15 husbands who had collected life insurance payouts totaling over $30 million. 5 corrupt doctors who had carried out the murders. Dozens of other people involved in forgery, fraud, and cover-ups. All because of my refusal to die quietly. David was already serving a life sentence without parole. Mike had been sentenced to 25 years. Dr. Rodriguez had received 15 years in exchange for his cooperation. Vincent Marconi was looking at 30 years for his role in the forgeries. And today was Tony Marconi's day of reckoning. I watched as he was led into the courtroom in shackles. He was smaller than I had expected, a thin man in his 60s with gray hair and cold eyes. When he looked in my direction, I didn't flinch. I stared right back at him. This was the man who had ordered my death. This was the man who had turned desperate husbands into murderers and corrupt doctors into killers. This was the man whose greed had destroyed dozens of families and ended 15 innocent lives. But not mine. The prosecutor stood up to give her opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a man who turned marriage into a death sentence, who turned medical care into murder, who turned love into a weapon. She gestured toward me. But it's also about a woman who refused to be a victim, a woman who turned her own near-death experience into a force for justice, a woman who survived not just attempted murder, but an entire conspiracy designed to profit from her death. I had spent 6 months in a form of witness protection, but not the traditional kind. Instead of hiding, I had worked directly with the FBI task force investigating Marconi's organization. I had helped them understand the psychology of the victims, the methods used to coerce the doctors, the financial structures that made the whole operation possible. I had become an expert in my own attempted murder. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 2 full days, walking the jury through every detail of that morning at the hospital, every revelation about David's lies, every aspect of the conspiracy that had almost claimed my life. When Tony Marconi's defense attorney cross-examined me, he tried to make me seem like an unreliable witness, a woman traumatized by her husband's betrayal. Mrs. Johnson, he said, isn't it possible that in your emotional state, you misunderstood some of what your husband told you? No, I replied firmly. It's not possible. I have perfect recall of every word he said, because those words almost got me killed. But you admit you never suspected your husband's gambling problem, never noticed any signs that something was wrong. Doesn't that suggest you might not be the most observant witness? You're right, I said. I didn't notice the signs that my husband was a gambling addict. But I noticed everything else. I noticed the forged signatures on insurance documents. I noticed the inconsistencies in his story. I noticed the medication in Dr. Rodriguez's car that would have killed me. I noticed all the evidence of a conspiracy to commit murder. Evidence that you didn't see until after your husband's confession. Evidence that I didn't understand until after my husband's confession. There's a difference. The defense attorney tried a different approach. Mrs. Johnson, isn't it true that you're receiving substantial compensation for your testimony in this case? No, I'm not receiving any compensation. But you are suing the life insurance companies for damages. I'm suing them to establish legal precedent, so that future insurance fraud cases will be easier to prosecute. Any money I receive will go to a foundation for families of murder victims. You're not doing this for money? I'm doing this because 15 women are dead, and Tony Marconi is the reason why. I'm doing this because if he's not stopped, more women will die. I'm doing this because I survived, and I owe it to the women who didn't to make sure their deaths mean something. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Tony Marconi was found guilty on all counts: racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and operating a continuing criminal enterprise. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the judge read the sentence, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not happiness exactly. Too many people had died for me to feel truly happy. But peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing that justice has been served, that the people responsible for evil have been held accountable, that the world is a little bit safer because of the choices you made. After the sentencing, I walked out of the courthouse and straight into a crowd of reporters. "Mrs. Johnson, how does it feel to know that Tony Marconi will spend the rest of his life in prison?" "It feels like justice," I said. "But more importantly, it feels like closure for the families of 15 women who didn't live to see this day." "What's next for you?" "I'm going back to work. I'm going back to being a nurse. I'm going back to helping people live instead of watching them die." "Are you afraid that other members of Marconi's organization might try to retaliate?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm not afraid anymore. When you've survived what I've survived, when you've seen what I've seen, when you've done what I've done, you realize that fear is just another choice. And I choose not to be afraid." "Do you have any message for other women who might be in similar situations?" I thought about that for a moment. "Trust your instincts," I said finally. "If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone you love is hiding things from you, find out what they are. If you're in danger, fight back. And if someone tries to kill you, refuse to die." 6 months after that press conference, I was back in Ohio, back in my job as a registered nurse, back in a life that was mine again. I had kept my maiden name, Sarah Richardson. I had bought a small house on the other side of town. I had learned to live alone, to sleep alone, to make decisions alone. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was a life I had chosen, a life I had fought for, a life I had earned. David wrote me letters from prison. I returned them unopened. The life insurance companies settled their lawsuits. The money went to establish the Jennifer Walsh Patricia Donovan Foundation for families of murder victims. Dr. Rodriguez sent me a letter apologizing for his role in the conspiracy. I read it, then burned it. Some apologies aren't meant to be accepted. Emma got engaged to a prosecutor she met during the trial. She asked me to be her maid of honor. "Are you ready to trust marriage again?" I asked her. "I'm ready to trust the right person," she said. "That's different." She was right. Someday maybe I would be ready to trust the right person too. But not yet. For now I was learning to trust myself. Because if you can survive your husband trying to murder you, if you can take down a criminal organization, if you can turn attempted murder into a force for justice, you can handle just about anything life throws at you. My name is Sarah Richardson. I'm 39 years old. I'm a registered nurse from Ohio. And I'm the woman who refused to die.